When dinner time gets near,
You can make it, you can make it.
and your wife has made it clear,
You can make it, you can make it.
it's your turn to cook, my dear.
You can make it, you can make it.
You have no need to fear.
You can make it, you can make it.
Make the dinner feed your spouse, bring peace into your house. You can make it. If you're lucky, she will say,
We will make it, we will make it.
life will be okay. Life will be okay. You can make it.
Welcome to another episode of You Can Make It. I decided I'd give some of my friends from the southern states a good laugh by making gumbo. What's an old fat guy up in the frozen tundra of Canada do making a southern dish like that? Well, it is cold outside. There is snow on the ground, and I can't think of anything better to have on a cold winter's day than a hearty bowl of gumbo. So that's what I'm going to make, and you're going to learn that you can make it too. The first thing you have to do when you make a gumbo is make a good dark roux. That's a mixture of fat and flour, and I'm going to show you the lazy way this fat old Canadian makes a roux. Let's get to it. One of the main secrets to making a good roux is to have a pot with a good thick heavy bottom like this one. Cast iron is perfect, but I don't have any cast iron, so I'm using my stainless steel pot, but it has a good half-inch thick heavy bottom. Don't even try and make roux in a pot with a thin bottom. It just doesn't work out and you'll end up burning it. I've put the heavy pot with 3/8 of a cup or 1.75 ounces by weight of just plain old all-purpose flour in it over medium heat, where I'm going to stir it until the flour starts to get a brown color. You'll have to keep stirring it constantly. Okay, you can see that 5 minutes later we're just starting to get a little bit of tan color on the flour, and that's exactly what you want. When you get that tan color on it, you want to add in 1/4 of a cup of vegetable oil. I've just used canola oil, but you can use corn oil or any other good quality commercial vegetable oil. So now that we've got that added in, you just stir it around until the flour mixture thickens into it. The flour is all stirred in now, and a word of warning here: if you see any black, even the slightest little hint of black in there, it's ruined and you got to start again. The pot then goes into a 350-degree oven covered on the lowest rack. So while the roux is in the oven getting nice and brown, it takes 30 to 40 minutes, and I use that time to prepare the rest of the ingredients. I chopped up a cup of onions, a cup of green pepper, and 1 stalk of celery. I finely chopped 2 large or 3 small cloves of garlic. I put on the same plate a half tablespoon of flour, a half teaspoon of thyme, and an 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne. I measured out 1/8 of a cup or 1 ounce of soy sauce. I chopped up 4 ounces or 1/4 of a pound of andouille, a Louisiana sausage. And I cut up about 3/4 of a pound of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I also have just a little bit less than 2 cups of chicken stock. Later on, we'll be adding some shrimps and prawns. After about 35 minutes in the oven, this is the color of my roux. They say it should be the color of a copper penny, but unfortunately in Canada they've got rid of pennies. But trust me, this is sort of the color it should be. Now that the roux is the right color out of the oven, I put it over medium heat, and I'm just stirring to make sure the oil is well mixed in. And I'm going to add those vegetables I cut up: the onions, green peppers, and celery. Now that they're added in, they're just going to get stirred around over medium heat for 8 to 10 minutes until they get nice and soft. Okay, I've thrown in the green pepper, the onions, and the celery, and I've stirred the roux with the vegetables for about 10 minutes, just till those onions and peppers get a little soft. Then I'm going to add the garlic, flour, thyme, and paprika that I prepared earlier. And you just stir that around, and you'll know when this is cooked long enough because you'll be able to smell the garlic and the thyme coming out. When you can smell it really easily, then it's been in long enough, and it's time to go to the next step. The next thing we're going to do is add a cup of tomatoes. You can use canned diced tomatoes and just pour some of the liquid off. These are tomatoes I grew in my garden and froze and drained just a bit of the liquid off, so I've got a cup of them. And you want to throw them in and let them cook until just a bit of the liquid comes off. There you go. As long as you don't see any pooling liquid in the bottom there, then you've cooked the tomatoes long enough. I had drained most of the liquid off. Okay, now that the tomatoes are mixed into the roux, we're going to add the chicken broth. This is homemade chicken broth, but you can use canned. The main thing is it has to be at room temperature or you run the risk of lumps. So just slowly and gradually feed in a little bit at a time the chicken broth. And there we go. And we want to let that again sit on high heat and slowly come to a boil. As it's coming to a boil, now's the time you can add the chicken into the soup. And of course, I did forget something when I told you to add the chicken, all that. I forgot to add the soy sauce, but it can go in now, no problem. There's 1/8 of a cup of soy sauce. Once it starts to bubble and boil like this, you just want to turn the heat down to low, and you're going to let this simmer for about 25 to 30 minutes. So there we are, it's covered and it's ready to go for 25 to 30 minutes. One of the great things about making gumbo is that you can do most of the work in advance and then just do a couple of things just before you serve it. So once your gumbo has simmered for 30 minutes and the chicken is cooked, you just cool it down and put it in the fridge until about 20 minutes before you want to eat. I'll show you what you do then and how to finish the gumbo off. Cheers. Okay, now that the jumbo is out of the fridge and we want to get ready for dinner, it's about 20 minutes before dinner, I get the cold gumbo out and I throw the andouille sausage into it because it gives a nice flavor, and then we put it on medium heat and give it a stir and get it up to a simmer and let it simmer for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes on medium heat, the gumbo has come back to just a boil, and the sausage, the andouille sausage that I put in, will be nice and heated through. Now's the time to add the seafood. Now unfortunately where we are, it's hard to get fresh seafood and it's really expensive, so I'm using frozen and it's not quite thawed yet. If you're using fresh seafood, you throw it in and cook it for another 5 minutes. Because I'm using frozen, it's going to drive the temperature down and I'll likely have to cook this for another 10 minutes. But I've got a half a pound of prawns and a half a pound of scallops that I'm stirring in. And we'll give that 10 minutes to get cooked through. So after 10 minutes, our gumbo is bubbling, the shrimp and prawns are cooked through, and we're ready to serve. To serve andouille, you take a big scoop of rice and you put it in the bottom of a bowl, and then you scoop the gumbo over the top of it. I can hardly wait. So now that we've served it up, let's give it a try. Bit of spice, nice and earthy flavor, prawns, chicken, sausage, it's delicious. You've got to try it and you can make it. Cheers.
When dinner time gets here,
You can make it, you can make it.
and your wife has made it clear.
You can make it, you can make it.
It's your turn to cook, my
You
dear.
can make it, you can make it.
You have no need to fear.
You can make it, you can make it.
Make the dinner feed your spouse, bring peace into your house. You can make it. If you're lucky, she will say,
We will make it, we will make it.
and life will be okay. Life will be okay. You can make it.